Alrighty, g'day guys. So what we've got for you here, got two replays. We're going to dive into the question, have we been sleeping on Eggsack split? So for those of you that don't know what this is where you're building Eggsacks on each wall, on each side of your lane, in order to divide the wave into two parts, some going to the right, some going to the left, right? So that's what an Eggsack split is. You'll have seen this on my channel with Hellraisers, also a couple of other times, just irregularly. It's not overly common, you don't see a lot of it. But Neon here sent me a couple of replays, and we saw them play in the tournament and do this fairly successfully as well. And they're sort of saying that, like, hey, Eggsack split is actually a lot better than most people are giving it credit for. So we'll dive into these replays, we'll have a look, and we'll just go through it. So this is profit pick, so it's probably how we get an Eggsack, but that's okay. So we have Egg, Monk, Rider. Now, I mean, I would do Cannon Eggsack like always here, because I think Cannon Eggsack is really insane, but that doesn't matter, that's not what we're here to look at. So, we don't split on the first couple of levels, because there's not really any upside doing it. So I'll just fast forward through these. So you can see here that we're already planning the Eggsack split, okay? Because if you're not planning to split with an Eggsack, you don't make this one here, you probably make it here, maybe half swap back, right? But making it here, while it has some functionality with melee units, this is basically too far back and too far off the wall to actually be good placement if you're not planning to split. But we'll see what it does later on in the build. So we'll just keep fast forwarding through these early levels. Second Monk, all fine. So obviously when you are splitting with Eggsack, the idea is you get a better hold. It's a holder setup, you're not trying to really push with Eggsack split, at least not as far as I know. So you do actually need things to hold the levels as well. Okay, 4 we see the split Eggsack. Obviously we don't need a split Eggsack here with Monk, but if you have a look, it actually does quite well. So you see this Eggsack, where the monks are, didn't take damage, or didn't take much damage. This one on the other wall actually fully procced and died. So it was pretty effective on 4, which is kind of interesting. Maybe has some relevance with other units as well. Alright. So getting Rider for more damage, and here we see 2 more Eggsacks. Okay. So we'll let him build up to 7, and then I'll talk about what each Eggsack does. More Eggsack. I think we run out of time there for the Rider, but it doesn't matter, they don't send. So we're gonna wait till the level's almost finished. Okay, we're gonna look at the other team send. It's 3460, so we're gonna call it 3500 send, right? So each lane is getting between 8 and 900 value of wood, 8 or 900 wood of send, so big fucking send. So, what are we looking at? We're looking at 2 Eggsacks here. These are completely lateral, right? Completely even with one another. 2 more Eggsacks back here. 2 Eggsacks here. So what is each Eggsack meant to do? These 2 are the actual, like, split Eggsacks, right? These 2 being lateral from each other are what actually cause the creeps to go to the left and to the right. This isn't like Legion TD2 where the spawns are consistent. So you can do like the same split each time and have the same effect, or you can do maybe this Eggsack a half swap back and that'll split less creeps. That doesn't work. In Warcraft 3 it's like dead even will get you a split. It's fairly random in terms of how many units go where, but what's not random is that like you'll get some kind of split. At least on the regular wave levels. Boss levels can be a little bit different. So these 2 actually create the split. This one and this one, they do the same thing. When this Eggsack procs, the creeps will then go to this Eggsack. When this one procs, they'll then go to this Eggsack. So these two are delay Eggsacks, because if you only have one Eggsack here, they go from here, then straight over to your where the rest of your units are. They won't have cleaned up the creeps here. Not too helpful, so you need more time. These two Eggsacks are for when the creeps finish off this Eggsack, they go over here. Instead of getting right onto your units, especially your backliners, they have 2 more Eggsacks to fight. Cool. So like, why are you fucking around with this? Why are you building so many Eggsacs? What's the point? So when the wave splits in 2, let's just say it's dead even split. It normally isn't, but let's say it's a dead even split. We'll have some units over here, some units over here. The idea is that the units over here will take so long to kill 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many Eggsacs you've got in a split. They'll take so long to kill them that your units over here will have killed all the units here, removed half the wave, removed any sends that came to this side, and will then be able to fight the other half of the wave with all of them alive, because they're only fighting half a wave, so you probably didn't lose very much. So we're going to have a watch of this wave here. So, half speed and we'll watch the creeps. So see, this Eggsack pulls, we drop a lot of the creeps. This is quite a good split here, I think. We drop a lot of creeps, more than half the wave, to the far side, where our units aren't. And then we have just a few creeps, and all the sends on this side. So have a look at this. Takes us no time for initiate riders with their ability, and 3 monks to get through the very small number of satyrs. Look at that. Verb, dead. Nurgle, dead. Well, dead. Still working on Eggsacs. Hermit, dead. Second Hermit, dead. Alright, we leave the Wyvern and we go to the creeps now, but 1 monk, heroic monk, stays to kill the Wyvern. See, we've still got 2 Eggsacs here that the creeps are busy with, and our whole lane is now just fighting what is half of level 7 with no sends, and we have all our damage dealers. So that's why it's strong on 7. So that was a really good example, I think, of when this is, or like, a good result stemming from this egg split. That was a fucking massive send, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it cost us 300 value, right? If we have 1 more monk and 1 more rider, so if we have 4 monks, 4 riders, instead of these Eggsacs, I think for sure you're leaking to that send. It's just too big. So, really, really nice. So next question is like, doesn't it just fuck you over on 10? I mean, let's have a look. Obviously, if you're like incredibly worried about 10, you can just sell the split Eggsack. That will just stop your unit splitting entirely, stop the wave splitting entirely, but obviously then you just got a bunch of Eggsacks to start. Great. So, building up whatever. And one thing I want you to know, look at all his non-Eggsack units. 2 columns, right? So, Neon reckons, and from what I've seen, this is fairly correct. Neon reckons you get 2 columns to build your damage, and if you build further out, then you start running the risk of units pulling over this way, which is not what you want. You want everything fighting here, and then fighting here. Alright, you don't want half your units fighting over here initially. So you want all your lane moving forwards, killing the creeps that split to the wall where your damage is, and then killing the creeps that went to the Eggsacs. So, build 1 high blocker, and then we'll have a look at the 10 spawn. It's worth saying that keep in mind the changes that were made to level 10. The spawning on level 10. So it used to be completely random, bosses could spawn wherever the fuck. Now they basically spawn like here, here, and here, right? They spawn pretty well laterally. 3 bosses, more or less evenly. Blockers still absolutely work, right? But you won't get the RNG of like 3 bosses over here, 3 bosses over here, right? That doesn't happen. That is coded to not happen. So, we'll have a look at his build again, speed up, and then slow down, pause. As you can see, we just add more damage in these 2 columns, right? I said 1 high blocker up the top, no more Eggsacs, still only 300 value of eggs. So let's have a look at these bosses. So, we hit the blocker, perfect, we go down to half speed, we get quite a nice block here, so that's on the lucky side, but cool. Watch these bosses. So this boss sees that Eggsack, decides to kill it. Now again, I think this is a pretty lucky split, but we have one boss getting super early over here with the Strider decides to suicide, gets absolutely just nailed. All the mass and sends go over here, along with the other two bosses. So we just get to fight one boss at a time almost. Right? This boss eventually joins in, but he's got an Eggsack over here as well. So we're just able to fight pretty reliably one boss at a time. Yeah, this was 4600 send, so decent send. We have an okay setup. We have like one Berserker, 3 Monks, and some Riders, and some Eggsacks. 1970 value. Like, can we mid with this if we're building normally? Absolutely. But I don't think you can say that the Eggsacks were like such a massive liability here. Because we burned through that first boss really nicely and it was quite good. So, I'm just going to fast forward through this bit because there's a little bit of mid-game to touch on. So, 2 other complaints about this Eggsack split. Number 1 is, oh, isn't it just a value? And it's like, well, kind of, but Eggsacks do proc on a decent number of levels in the mid-game, and you've got to keep in mind, like, the way it's done here, it's only 300 value, it's not that bad. The sends will still have to kill them eventually, especially if you've got high-range units like Mr. Cannon here that will sit behind the Eggsacks. Even if they're not proccing against demons or whatever, it still take a couple of hits for the demon to get through them. Not completely irrelevant. Not particularly useful, but not completely irrelevant. And the other question is, oh, won't splitting mid-game just get your backline sniped? And the answer is, yeah, maybe. So what do? You say goodbye to 25 gold, sell this Eggsack, it's 25 gold, it's not that bad, and that doesn't happen anymore. So that'll depend with the placement of the backline. So you see, keeps the Eggsacks in for now. And see, we're still getting a nice split even on 12. Obviously range levels will be a little less reliable, but 2 of our Eggsacks on this right side procced. Let's get back up. And obviously just building for 17 as normal. We'll have another watch of the split on 13, so just to give you an idea of the mid-game level. You can see more creeps went to the left side this time, but we get a good amount of creeps around this right side. Right? And they have to get through all 3 Eggsacks. You can imagine if we either had a couple more Eggsacks protecting here, or our cannons were maybe, if we had more space in these 2 columns and everything was just going forwards, really strong. As it is there, yeah, you can see the backlines at risk of getting sniped. But another question might be like, what if you've just got like frontline carries? What if you're playing Thrall and your backline isn't important? It's like maybe good that your backline gets sniped in that spot. Anyway, you see here, 14, by Eggsack. So Eggsack stop proccing really on 14. They'll proc on 16, but they won't proc on 14, they won't proc on 15 unless you get lucky on 15, because it needs to get hit by Firelord Splash. Yeah, you can see like now maybe 3 creeps go to the back line. Like technically they're still getting sniped, but by the time let's say 17 rolls around and you might have like 7 or 8 cannons, they're just going to kill the creeps that are hitting them before they die. With 2 upped and 1 unupped, yeah, you lose a cannon. When you have like 7, 8, it's not going to happen. And just fast forward through this, not super interesting. A couple of creeps ported these Eggzacks, they don't even get through them this time. 16 range level, so with this with the Eggsack split like quite far back now, not really going to do anything on a range level. Doesn't really need to do anything on the range level. Both teams send here. I do think it's curious that we build a cannon here, but we'll keep an eye on it. So you get 1 golem to the split, doesn't really matter. Might tempt another couple. Yeah, they sort of walk in piecemeal. They don't proc Eggsacks, got the wrong amount of damage for that, but it's okay. And you see all the eggs over here, all the golems that went to these splits, yeah, the cannons were able to kill them. It's not too bad. If you had things that, if your damage dealers were shorter range, than the Eggsacks, then yeah, the Eggsacks would be basically shit useless here, but again, it's like 250 to 300 value of shit useless is not that bad if it gives you a big advantage in early. And it definitely can be worth it, right? So there's enough fucking games that end on 10 that like just being really good on 7 and fine on 10 is pretty relevant. Anyway, that's going to be all we're talking about for this one. It goes like quite light from here, and Eggsack Split I think genuinely doesn't do anything in the endgame. Either does nothing or is probably like actively harmful, so we're not going to worry about that too much. Then we'll get into a secondary play as well. This one's a lot shorter, but if the game ends up finishing on 10. But it's going to be a similar sort of build. Just again demonstrating like how Eggsack Split can have a lot of upside. But it's the exact same theory as the Hellraiser Eggsack Split, right? Just the reason that Hellraiser Eggsack, I guess, is a bit more popular is partly because the Eggsacks probably feel like a little bit less added value in the game. Partly because the push is really flexible with Hellraiser Eggsack because you're building so many eggs a lot of the time. Also, it just kind of makes sense because Hellraiser is one of the highest DPS units. Very, very, very high damage, but very, very, very fragile. And I guess the other upside is if you're building Hellraiser and Eggsack together, both units suck on 10, so if you go Hellraiser Eggsack, you don't have to try and hold 10, which means you don't care if you have a bunch of Eggsacks for 10. Anyway, see here, first Unity pick both times has been Eggsack, so Leon likes the Eggsacks, eh? But there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. And we're quite good at using them, whether you think the Eggsack Split is particularly worthy or not. It's almost like card games, right? This might be like a C tier deck, or like a tier 3 deck, for example. Like, I'm not saying it is, right? But let's just say it's a tier 3 deck. I mean, a tier 3 deck can do well when it's piloted by someone who like knows the ins and outs, knows the matchups, knows the tech choices, so on and so forth, right? Like if it's being used by like a bit of an expert, a bit of a guru, hey, it can suddenly look a lot stronger than when it's just being piloted by a bit more of an amateur. Anyway, I will say I do think this start is like pretty bad. This looks like just death on 3 in a box to me, but you know, we're not here to say like how we're starting or whatever. What we're looking at specifically is the way the egg split looks, because there are a lot of ways to get into the egg split, right? You don't need 3 Eggsacks on level 2 to do an Eggsack split. The idea is as long as you have them for like the send levels after 4, for like 5, 6, 7, that's when we're really looking at using the split. Like, yeah, it gets used on 3 here, but if you just have all the Eggsacks in front of the alpha, it's going to be like same difference, right? So, shoot through this. We can see, same deal again here. All the damage is in these 2 columns. And I imagine this time, because he's not using monks, he's using alphas, builds an extra egg in front of them on his damage side, right? On his like carry side. We'll just call it carry side and a split side, I guess. So he's built an extra Eggsack on front on his carry side, probably because he's using alphas, which are ranged units, and will generally stay behind the eggs, right? And also they are more fragile than monks, of course. So second Eggsack makes a lot of sense. So fast forwarding through 6, because it's not that interesting with no send. Obviously Eggsack Split isn't going to be amazing for you on 6, just because Eggsacks aren't the best on 6. They're pretty good on 7. So you get a little bit more damage. Third egg. Yeah, 2 to 3 eggs in the middle here. So we got a really similar setup, right? We got the 2 eggs that cause the split. This egg is just like an extra extra egg against the, or like for the carry side, for the units they end up fighting. So this doesn't really do anything for the split. This is just for whatever comes to the carry side to make sure we don't actually lose an alpha, right? Because you ideally, you don't lose any of your like damage units, any of your carry units. And obviously we have split, extra delay, mid catch, right? And mid catch is once they finish this egg, they then move into the middle, over to your carry side. This catches them in mid, catches them. Beautiful, love to see it. So, the send, this time it's a 2k send, so 500 odd wood each, still a pretty decent send. 1190 value. You know, somewhat high, but nothing ridiculous. I don't think we got really much feed to speak of this game. So looking at the split this time, get a lot of creeps again, a lot of creeps to this right hand side, less creeps to this left hand, and all the sends. So, is Eggsack doing work? This Eggsack not doing tons here, but it's okay, we're not going to need it. So we kill all the sends, catch onto the mid Eggsacks. Look at those mid Eggsacks, right? Doing a perfect job catching those creeps. Clean through them without damage, they don't have any sends or auras supporting them. And we end up mid. So, we have one full HP Eggsack. This was this like extra protection Eggsack. It ended up being completely useless here. We would have had an identical mid, except for this Eggsack with 1140 value. We didn't, which is totally okay. It could have been helpful for sure if we got some more units to the left. But yeah, it's sort of worth noting that it didn't really do anything this time. So I'll fast forward through it. They say GG, but it doesn't actually end here. Cool, level 8. Just, again, build basically whatever. We're building damage for 10 now. 10 is the next level we're trying to hold. Yeah, we're 7-2. As you can see, we do a really high acolyte. So I've noticed that for his blocker, he likes to do it actually like a little towards the split side. The idea from that is probably just to try and help corral some of the bosses over to that side. Alright, so if we look at the value here, 1970 or whatever it's going to be, so solid value, but definitely attainable with 7-2. What we got is a bunch of alphas, one helicopter. I mean, I'd argue small flying machine. Big alpha is stronger. But whatever. And then, yeah, just one extra Eggsack. Definitely, like, could have just skipped this Eggsack and it's same difference, right? So don't feel like you need, oh my god, I need the 4th mid-split Eggsack. You don't. It's normally not proccing on 10. So, we'll have another look at the spawn. So Acolyte Blocker sort of does its job. We get some blockage. Beautiful, lovely, love to see it. So, eggs pull most of the mass here. This time we get 2 bosses to the carry side, 1 boss to the split side, but that's still like kind of okay. We've removed about 1/3 of the damage with the 1 boss 1 spawn. You can see boss plus spawn is actually proccing Eggsacks, which is interesting, but there you go. And we have, as long as we have enough damage to kill 2 bosses and some of the mass, but not all of it, we can pretty easily clean it up. So we kill the back line, and then it's just 1 boss versus like everything really, and it's a pretty easy finish. So yeah, again, like this is a good mid for 1950, right? Like I can definitely see you having a smaller mid if you have invested all that value in like not Eggsacks and not a split, and is instead just like regular damage with that sort of lane. So yeah, a couple of replays that I think were just a really solid example of good Eggsack split. Should you do this every game? I don't think so, no. But games where you have Eggsack and you have damage, where you don't gate your build early by going like too wide out, if you actually are able to build in those 2 lanes, you can probably swing it with 3. But I suppose consistency is just in the 2 columns. And if you decide that like, hey, it's real, like 7 and 10 are going to be really important this game, not so worried about having dead value for mid-game, or maybe your role is just like, is not that great for mid-game, your only job is to like do really well on 7 and 10, and afterwards it doesn't matter so much. So they're all good options, right? So I think from here what we can say is like, are we sleeping on Eggsack split? Yeah, I think we are a bit. I don't think we see it, or basically I think I'm sure there have been spots where it would make sense and where it wasn't used because we sleep on it. I don't think it's the strongest thing ever in the game. I don't think you should do it every time you have Eggsack in your role, but I think it should definitely be more of a consideration than it is currently. So yeah, hopefully I'll get some Eggsacks in some upcoming games and get a chance to show it off myself. But yeah, cheers very much for watching, guys. Appreciate it. Like, subscribe, all of that, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.